before I start with the presentation, I'll probably give you a short glimpse of what 3D Excite stands for and what we're doing. Our latest showreel. That's us, in principle, all of that. As said, founded 1999. We are around 750 people today, all around the world in 15 offices. Our slogan, or one of our slogans, is excitement engineered, actually, because what we bring together is not just developing software or doing projects or doing experiences, all of the above. We consult our partners, our clients, on how to use our software, how to implement processes to really do product visualization for marketing and for retail. And since 2.5 years, we are also part of Dassault Systems. Dassault Systems, whoever knows them, are the makers of CATIA, SolidWorks, Solid Edge, Innovia, BioVia, GeoVia, and so forth. So we actually went very much closer to the source of a lot of the product data that needs to be marketed. And in the moment, we are engineering together with Dassault pipelines that bring that engineering product data very, very much quicker into the marketing and retail world. 3D Excite itself concentrates on marketing in the age of experience. So we really are the brand within the Dassault universe which concentrates on that end of the product lifecycle. What has changed in the past year that an engineering company like Dassault thinks of extending into marketing and retail. I think you all know we are all here because of that, what's happening, all the trends, all the hardware, all the software, all the mobility that's happening, and all the digitalization that's happening around us, all the transitioning there. George Lucas back then in the studio, and just shortly. And the same things that are happening that you saw with the mobiles being picked up with George Lucas and visual effects industries as well. It's also happening in the retail space of our customers. And I'm staying within this presentation, I'm pretty much staying within the automotive industry because that's our core topic, but it's equally true for all other industries as well. So what a car dealership looked like a couple years back, and still in some places looks like that, today, you see more and more very boutique, urban brand stores where they also sell cars. And most of the time they build up, this is DS from the PSA group, they build up those stores inside shopping malls. You have Audi moving into urban centers with Audi forums. You have the same on Daimler side. BMW is doing it. You have very, very tiny brand experience centers where in the same time the product portfolio is growing dramatically. How many products does Audi have? Around 50. How many products does Daimler have? Around 60. How many products Porsche has by now? It's also around 40 to 50. So it's a contrary trend in terms of sizing a retail, a point of sales ship, more or less, contrary into the growth of the product that you actually have to present there. And one of the solutions there is visualization of products on screens, and since probably last year, 2 years, also having a VR experience, a more immersive experience with the individual product and configuring the individual product. And this is just explaining this movie on what we did for DS. Where you can say a quarter of the space of that brand experience center, a quarter is with one actual car, one real car, a quarter is used for VR in a very nice exclusive luxury setting, and the other 2 parts are for VIP configuration of products and a small office space actually as well. And in this case, we're not talking about a demo or an event where it's a particular launch of a car and it needs some very VR or AR wow demo. We are talking about a tool that is used in the selling of that product, and not of that just the one product, but of all their cars in the whole range. So it needs to be handled, it needs to be very useful for a dealer manager, to talk and to actually transport all the elements of the product to a potential buyer. So you won't see the wind, visual effects like wow. It's about the product itself, about the configuration, the difference in paints, the difference in rims, the difference in options, the difference in a lot of the elements that are not necessarily really showable in still images as well, because modern cars get more and more USPs that need to be explained, like lane assist systems, like the headlight moving in and out if you switch it on. All these elements you cannot show by pictures, but they need to be transported. By now, we rolled that out to 150 dealerships, so 150 more to come. And this is just the start with the one brand from PSA. There's 2 more brands, and we are in discussion with them. How do you start an experience like that? You have to choose from many different options there. With PSA, with DS, we have 2 systems running from one core. One is just a screen on the wall, where you can configure. The other one is the VR experience, where you, again, can configure, but you have a slightly different experience with the same car, and you have a consistent look and feel between the 2 systems, which creates new challenges. So the pick and choose was a VR headset, touch table, or actually touch table for configuring. You have like a big screen. You have tablets also to show and to save configurations, and at the end, all run by the same data, by the same assets, by the same engines. From a back-end point of view, what you need is not just a render engine, for example. You need a lot of other elements. Those systems need to be remote maintainable. We have to save the model state. We have to save the system state. We have to know what the system is. If we have distributed to a couple hundred dealerships, you really have to maintain those things. You need to know which ones are active, which ones are down, which ones were updated, and so forth. So there's a whole structure and framework around the actual experience, which deals with different things. Also, being able to play movies, images, and documents when needed, being able to connect to the cloud so we can fill dashboards, connect and interface to a rule engine or rule database from the client that is updated weekly. So we have to make sure that the visualization of the product that we are showing in both experiences is up to date and is only showing elements that are actually that you are able to order. And then we have an abstract render interface to different render engines. 3X our own render engine in there, but we are able to use Unity and Unreal as well for different experiences, and trying to be agnostic there on all the elements, on all the assets, and then at the very end just use one of the renderers, whichever has the best advantage for the experience that we're wanting to do. So in the case of DS, we're using DeltaGen and Unity. Unity for VR and DeltaGen for the screen display and the actual creation of the assets. user experience as well has something to do with engineering, because if you think about the need to display multiple cars in one and the same physical location and in this one and same virtual location, you really have to do a lot of thinking up front. Where is that seat positioned so it would fit to all the car? How do I set up the whole virtual scene so I can see the product from all sides and nobody is running into a wall as well? So we did a lot of pre-thought on that, together also with the architects of those retail spaces to come up with a solution where we can actually present all products from DS and still have a very immersive experience. But coming to the, let's say, content creation, where the main focus of this speech is, this presentation is, and what does content creation mean? As said a couple of sentences before, I think the product range of today's automotive OEMs is quite extensive, yeah, and it's a similar image, no matter on which OEM you look, yeah, and it's growing. What it also means is that those products, they are very, very, very transparently and detailed described in the engineering systems. Yeah? So the CAD, also the manufacturing information, a lot of the marketing information, as said, with the rule engine, they are all living systems. And all of those products get updates twice a year, you can say. Lifetime of a car is around 6 to 8 years, so after 6 to 8 years, it will be replaced by a next generation. In the middle of that, you typically have a facelift, and every 6 months you have some minor updates. Yeah? It can be as minor as a new color, or one color less. It can be major, like a facelift, where you change all the front bumper, rear bumper, headlights, rear lights, and a lot of the interior. So how do we structure and like break it down? That challenge of keeping track of that many cars that get so many updates in an environment where we have to make sure that at the very end in the dealership the right image is shown. And this kind of exemplifies as well what the challenge there is. Yeah, we start off with the CAD geometry. We add all the elements that are not necessarily in the CAD database, meaning all the soft parts or a lot of other information, materials. We add information in form of visual bill of material, how we call it. Elements, very, very stupid elements like, let's say, what do I take? The sport package of a car normally lowers the car by 2 centimeters. That's not in the CAD data. Yeah, that's elements that you need to put into the structure of the visual representation of the product, so that you can, if you switch on the sport package, the car gets lowered on its wheels. And at the very end, you add also the offer codes, which is the marketing world. Yeah? The marketing uses different language than the engineers in terms to describe what the individual option is. So you really blow up the information and bring it together, and at the very end, you have a very heavy data set of one product. But that data set includes all the options of the car. You can say it's complete, it's product correct. It has all the visual elements in there. And then the experience need to be able to filter it down to the one correct configuration and visualization of that product, depending on in which time it is, today, for example, in which market it is, in which channel it is used, in which experience it is used. And this is the overall challenge of the thing. Now, along the way, if you have the experience at the end, how do we get there? We broke down more or less the process into sourcing, enriching, stage, produce, deploy, and experience. Sourcing is really getting all the information. And again, CAD data is a good start for geometry, but you have to do a lot more, source a lot more. Enriching means adding all the elements that are coming from other worlds than engineering. For example, soft parts as said, but also materials, marketing codes, and all those elements in between. There's no CAD database or no texture database that gives you, for example, the navigation screen or the content of the navigation screen. So you have to get it from somewhere else, or you have to build it in order to get it into the product. Staging means bringing all the creative elements to the game, to the experience. Yeah? So lighting, environment, animation or interaction with the product, produce is the next step where you really factor your content towards the experience. Do I render out? Do I have a real-time experience? Deployment is targeting towards the system. If you render out an image, you don't have a deploy. Copy and paste the image or upload it somewhere. If you have a real-time experience, like a VR experience, you need to deploy it to 150 dealerships or 300 dealerships or 6,000 dealerships. Deploy becomes a very big challenge in what you're doing. And the experience clearly is what is at the end. One level further down, specifically focused on the content here, you find again the sourcing and enriching phases and stage and produce. This is how we go on. And again, this is focused on automotive, but it's equally true for other industries as well. Maybe the ingredients on the far left are changing then, yeah. But if we go through, you have customer systems that deliver you or give you geometry, structure, codes, and material. And that's the four main ingredients for the definition of the product as such. In the sourcing phase, you gather all that, and we typically bring it into one, let's say, universal language. Every OEM has its own language, its own accent of a language, but it's always those four components. And we bring them into a pipeline in our services where it's very similar. The accent might be different, but it's the same language. You add, in the enriching phase, all the elements that are missing. You add also the visual bill of material elements, the VBOM elements, and at the middle, where it says Universal Data Model, what you get really is the product as such. It doesn't look beautiful yet. It's fully interactive, fully real-time, but it's not staged. No creative elements, no artist putting lights on it or stuff like that. But it is the correct visual representation of the product. And we can go back to a client and have a product approval, what we call product correctness approval with him. So we sit down with him and really go through the car and say, did we translate what you gave us in the right way to visualize the real thing, so that we have created a digital twin of the real product that you are going to sell? And this is what he will tick off before we go into stage and produce, which is then already typically catered towards the experience. That basic structure helps us in many ways. Yeah? The basic breakdown helps us in updating and maintaining the product. So if a part from 2000 changes, we can pull it through. We know exactly which one it is still at the end. So we don't have to update the whole product and rework 2,000 parts again, but we know exactly which one is changing. The same goes to materials, same goes for new animations and so forth. So we really concentrate on keeping quite an engineered approach on that, so we are sustainable with all the product updates that will be coming over time. And what we do then is to cater that into the experience, really. Yeah? This is only then when we add, let's say, the creative elements, like tweaking the shaders for a nice look, adding the lighting, adding camera angles, animation, and so forth, which is very much differently when you do images for a print brochure or if you do an VR experience. Still, at that point in time, we have a digital twin that is, and that's why we call it universal data model actually, which is kind of scalable in terms of size, in terms of resolution. So we keep all the NURBS data in that file, so we can down tessellate or up tessellate depending on what the experience will be later on. And in that sense, because we keep all that information, we are very flexible to do that final optimization and tweaking at the very end towards the experience. And it's just simplified of what it looks like. Yeah, depending on what the experience is, and if we are talking about VR, AR, these are, let's say, the buzzwords on the content side that really matter for performance and for fidelity. And as you know, you always have a balance in, I want the product look as good as possible and as detailed as possible, but I also have to make a compromise on a couple of densities and definition and so forth in order to have the highest performance possible. So really we concentrate on these elements really in the deployment phase towards the experience. And this is only possible because we have all the information, we keep all the information up to that point. And we add the creative elements to that universal data model, and we're not compromising up to that point in order to already improve, improve geometry or tessellation, polymesh, and all these elements up till then. And then it's a more or less automated process to get it into that. The nice thing of what we do there since 2 years in our service department is that we are now also bringing that into technology, into software that you will be able to buy later this year. DeltaGen, which is our primary software authoring tool for getting CAD data in and have a high-end visualization, is getting 3 little brothers. We call DeltaGen for marketing, and they have the names Robot, Hub, and Stage. That might change, we will see. And they are just catered for different use cases, whereas Robot is really a batch tool for using or processing large amount of CAD data. No real authoring tool in terms of you have a real-time viewport. It's really a batch tool. DeltaGen Hub is the one with the authoring where you have a scene graph, where you can see the content after conversion, where you can add materials and so forth, and where you can then also deploy it, export it into Unreal, Unity, FBX, Maya, all of these engines if you need to. You can stay within DeltaGen and use just DeltaGen as a visualization engine. And then there's DeltaGen Stage, which adds to the DeltaGen Hub more or less the abilities of our own renderers, Stellar as a physically based renderer, for example, and also VR, AR capabilities within that same authoring tool. So you don't have to switch software from A to B, and you just stay in there. And this is about it. In time? Not
minutes, but okay.
Yeah?
It's okay. Just 1 minute. Thank you, Tim.
Welcome. Thank you.